So we're talking about the role of communication at lunch here, and I guess one of the things that I would say to start with practicing with a speech therapist is she remarks to me all the time, why does everyone think communication is only spoken speech? Because there are so many instances, like the pudding video that we watched earlier, that really is a kiddo communicating entirely through that. He was a high communicator, I felt like, in watching that. He was using verbal, spoken language in that case. He was also communicating a ton with nonverbal body language. So what I would say to any respite providers that we have working with our kids and getting on a call list is parents will obviously prep all this. I do want to say one thing. I think one of the best ways to communicate, how to communicate with the kids would be if our respite people were able to watch videos of them at home. We're able to see what their current present level of communication with mom and dad through dinner was, how mom and dad interacted with them, things like that, so they knew immediately right where their present level of performance was, so they knew what to take off on. It's one thing, Kat, you kept bringing up, I think it's important to sit and talk to the parents, and we should talk all this out, but it's another thing entirely to see 15 minutes on a kid playing in the park, sitting and eating dinner, a little quick snippet, Cliff Notes version of their day in video form, so that respite provider can watch that and know how that kiddo engages, interacts, how others communicate with them. I think that could get your communication consistency like spot on almost pretty quickly without a ton of training hours to do it. Just see it. 90% of the population are visual. I have had a ton of kids. Remember that I'm not going to go over learning disabilities specifically. Tina's like, we need to nix that. I don't know how many of our kids, and she's right. But a lot of my kids are diagnosed with behavior disorders that really are coming from like a learning disability. I will remind you all of this. Dyslexia is 80% auditory. People think of the M's and W's and the reversals like that. It's 80% auditory. So if we say we're going to the park, and then we're going to go to the grocery store, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do that, and then we're going to do this, that's 5 instructions that kid's gone on you, right? And this is a very kind respite provider making $12.50 an hour, telling them what they're going to do because we told them to prime the kid, not realizing you're auditorily overstimulating them.
This is why visual schedules are really important.
And
so if you're having an afternoon with a child and you have that visual,
Yep.
and you have some way to flip it from one thing to the next, so you're not looking at it
Yep.
all at the same time.
Yep. One of the top questions in your questionnaire to parents, I have a ton of ideas, you and I can meet after that.
Okay.
But one of the top questions I would say is your kid an audio or visual learner? That is one of the top things that will tell you right away how to communicate with them. Does that make sense to you guys?
Mm-hmm.
So I really feel like the role communication plays in behavior and frustration. When kids are frustrated, their behavior speaks. Watch it. Watch what's going on. Watch what happened before it. People hate it when I hand them ABC charts, which are antecedent behavior consequence charts. You have to know what just happened right before that behavior. What is going on? Was it an adult directive? Did the kid think they had to put their dirty underwear in the dirty clothes? Did you say it's time to leave now? We've got to meet your mom and dad. And boom! You've got to see what comes right before, and then they're communicating with you. They're saying, no, I don't want to go yet. And then you're saying, you flip into behavior mod mode. I'll give you time, I'll give you space, but really what never gets talked about, what never gets repaired, as Tina talked about this morning, is I don't want to leave the park yet. So then we do transitions like 5 more minutes or 7 more minutes. All these lovely things we do to try to help this person communicate better the next time. But if we don't have a little cheat note way to say, man, every time I say you need to, they spike. Every time I say blah, 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 they spike. If we don't have a little mental note of our time with them and coming back to our home base, being the parents, and saying and sharing those items, we're not going to dial in on the communication.
And just to dovetail in here, protest is a normal product development.
Yes.
They're not being oppositional, defiant,
To ruin your
or
day.
non-compliant. They're developing a sense of self by saying, I want.
Right.
I mean, that's an essential developmental thing.
Right.
Some people have an I want that's a little bigger than somebody else.
It's a little louder.
Because they don't have that self-regulation and they can't regulate that, and everything is more intense. So what I want is who I am, and especially the younger ones.
Right.
But getting some comfort with somebody pushing against your limits and just protesting and being able to acknowledge that with the empathy of just saying, yeah, it's really frustrating to have to stop.
Something you're
stop
enjoying.
what you're doing and have to go. Yeah. And
Every kid transitioning in off recess does that every single day. And teachers are absolutely, and paras and everyone I work with are absolutely bothered by, why didn't they want to come in from recess? Who does? I want to stay outside too if it's nice. I mean, a transitional item, away, priming, pre-teaching, those are all communicative tricks that we've used over the years to help our kids and support, right? So I think visual schedules are a key. I don't even have a ton of words on them. If there are words, think about this though, if a kid's a non-reader yet, I make the words as big as the picture. This baloney of a tiny little word and then an icon is ridiculous. So many of my kids have learned to read by memorizing those letters, the lettering and the words.
unless it's a preschool child.
That we really need to show them the action and the word with great, look, there's difference between using a PEC system. Let's say a kid's communicating through an iPad. I just don't give them their iPad and talk with my great speech to them. I use the iPad too and talk back to them. That's another little trick. Because here's the person with disabilities going, oh great, she's going to use her long speech that seems to be put together okay, and now I have to find, I don't want to do this. Your timing should be what theirs
There's so much disruption.
Yes.
If you have
Reciprocity
speech
is
problems and stuff, where you have latency, where your processing speed is interfering
Yes.
with communication, so that me as the provider, and this is why there's so many social problems too.
Yes.
Because kids are not, we can adapt ourselves to a communication level and just slow down the circles or whatever.
Kids have it tough.
But kids, it's like it's not working, so I'm gonna go play with somebody else.
Right.
One of the interesting things is I went to school in Europe that is really neat. In the schools where I went to, there was always a priming bell at
Yeah.
recess.
A what?
See, priming bell.
Priming bell.
Oh.
So there was
They
like
ring
a
it
short,
to
like
give
when,
We
before the
have
end of
it right.
recess, like a
5
few
minutes,
minutes before that, there was like a brief little ding, ding, ding
To
before
remind
the
you.
big bell came. That's
Yeah.
kinda
One high
nice.
She
school.
said they do that in Head Start too, just to
They
help
do?
the kids, yeah.
Yeah.
My high
Yeah.
school had a 5-minute bell to let
Tell you you
know
have 5 minutes
you
left.
have 5 minutes left of
Right.
class,
Yeah.
start cleaning up or
Awesome.
get ready for it to end.
And that's what we're talking about, because then that eliminates that communication problem. You might have another one on snow pants, I don't know. I've done more of the routines of getting ready, and then teachers are all, or us as advocates are all auditory. Put your pants on now,
Yeah,
do
you
your
can have a
blah.
visual schedule.
And you're not putting yours on, by the way.
What you put on first.
So they have no model.
Right.
They have no, unless you have the visual in front of you, they have no model, because adults aren't wearing pants. Why aren't you wearing pants? A little kindergartner, Mike Fish asked me that the other day. Why aren't you wearing snow pants? Because I don't go outside as long and I'm okay.
Oh.
I'm okay. They caught me off guard. I was like, they don't make them this big is what I should have said.
I'm not
I would
rolling
ask
around in
kids.
snow like
Right,
you.
right. But you guys see it, right? And so then that communication piece, I'll get into this more with my little bubbles of the functional behavior, because then actually you know where the communication delay comes in and why it's happening. And so that's another piece. And I can move to that, or do you have more you want to add with that too?
I'm just saying that whatever sign language is needed will be
Yeah.
provided by the parent,
Oh, yeah, right.
adaptive communication,
Which would be your pets.
simplifying,
Yep.
making it short. the
First then
pacing,
scheduler.
The
Yep.
speed, and then combining it with gestures or
Yep.
these visual cues or.
Absolutely. Just always, to me, it's like common sense. If I'm not putting on my snow pants and I'm telling another one I see a ton is what side are they dominant on, where do you prompt them? So if I'm sitting across from someone working with them and they're right-handed, I need to present those materials in their right field. Think of little ones now. But I see people religiously, they're right-handed, so they put them where it's comfortable for them. They're not even looking at how they're scanning. A little slant board for information. If you're doing your picture schedules, those should not be flat under bright lights right in front of them. Put them on a little slant or hold them vertically. The person's gonna have a way better shot at looking at them to fully understand the communicative attempt in that moment, right? Prolo to go, I can lamp, I know all these systems, lamp's better for someone with apraxia, blah, 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 I can go on and on and on. But that's what our respite people are gonna be in charge of doing. That takes me right back to the video of them communicating through it at dinner time so they know exactly what your expectations are and how you guys are doing it with them. And I think that's gonna be massive in making them feel trained, right? Feel appropriate with it.
The only other thing I had is assertive communication.
Oh, yeah.
And both modeling that and being clear and in being assertive, and then teaching the
Okay.
child how to say in whatever mode you can get.
Exactly.
Because then once they have that empowerment of a way to say, I want this, or I don't like this to appear, you won't be doing so much social probably, but maybe with siblings if the
Right, absolutely.
if you were doing respite with one of a sibling, you'd have to, and the way you start that developmentally is to give them those words.
Mhm.
Well, say, not no, you say stop, or, whatever the rudimentary things are, at first you have to give them
Say it or
those words.
show them,
You can say this,
or do this.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah. And then later on, you can prompt them to use their words and they know what you're talking about.
And schools can develop, I mean, I'm thinking about her and Head Start, their own symptom. I have worked hard for years to try to have every school that I've presented at put their hand out for stop if they felt like anyone was in the red
Yeah.
zone coming at them, or they were gonna be in the red zone to
Yeah.
anyone. So that as an anti-bullying, as a stop, this is a universal signal, I don't care where you are, don't get any closer to me, or I'm in a state where I shouldn't be close to you right now. So you'll have the sassy, bossy little girls going, stop, stop, all over the playground the first day you do that. But after that, it will become your way to see, and you know what I love the most about that? Is clear across from somewhere in a park. If you've taught someone, you can see that way across, and the stuff you couldn't hear with the kid getting bullied, you can sure as heck see if they're using the methodology correctly. That's been, to me, like a no-brainer that should be with the zones, right incorporated with the zones, that shows a visual signal for every person. Every learner can pretty much do that. In fact, I think that's an easier signal than even the hand signal aside. For your kids that are apraxic, they don't do great with sign. Yeah, exactly. That's another one that if you got a sports or middle school kid and you
Need a break.
timeout, technical, is that a timeout or a technical? Which one? They'll catch you on that. But I do really think her saying assertive communication, so here's the deal. This needs to go to every respite provider that comes in these doors, and probably everyone working with anyone in here. No you need tos. You need to go over here, you need to go there. You switch every single you need to. You want to say to someone, even including your significant others, I would suggest it, to, I'll know you're ready when. I'll know you're ready when your feet are in front of you. I'll know you're ready when your toes are pointed towards the door. I'll know you're ready when the pen's in your hand. I'll know you're ready when. I'll know you're ready when. I'll know you're ready when. That is assertive communication.
Right. Or
And it's
walk.
the right way to do it. Yeah, or if you can't do that many words because someone gets auditorily overstimulated,
You just
then
know
you
what
do
you want
walking
them to
feet.
do. Yeah.
Pointing fingers, not picking fingers, pointing finger. I mean, all these different things. People ask me all the time, how do you not say no to kids? And this stuff's going on. I mean, this kid's throwing a coat over his head. And I say, because I give him one shot to do it right. Coats go on your arm, right arm, left arm, which one? In preschool, all the time, right? So you give them one shot, coats go on the arms. And they're like, what? She didn't tell me no, she didn't tell me stop.
Right.
Which finger's coming out first? And before you know it, they're sticking their little fingers out their
Right,
coat.
but you're directing their attention to what you want them to do, not what you
Not
don't
what
want them to do.
do.
So that's just a basic thing.
Yeah, but like no gets so overgeneralized, people don't even understand. With dog, I mean, honest to goodness, people don't get that you don't need to lead out with the behavior
Negative.
accelerator.
Right.
And it's a punisher. It's meant to stop what's going on that you don't like. It's not meant to teach something else in its replacement.
Well, and I read this when my kids were toddlers, the idea when you say, don't run in the street, a kid will hear run in the street.
Yep.
Whereas if you say, we run on the grass.
Right.
Like, okay, grass.
Or we have
run.
walking feet.
Yeah.
Either one of those
Yeah.
work great.
Yeah.
They are always
That's
processing the
amazing.
last thing
Yeah.
they heard when they're little.
Yeah.
right? That's why if you give a kid a list of 5, they're either gonna get the very first item because it's already gone to long-term memory, or they're gonna get the last thing you just said and be cognitively rehearsing that. The other thing I love for our respite providers and parents alike is I do this thing called tell, re-ask, retell, and this is another big part of communication, where I tell an instruction, it's time to go to dinner. I re-ask the kid, where are we going? Dinner, or let's say they hate baths, to take a bath, and they're like, dinner? And then you'll be shocked. You can even give them a win-lose like that, like one they don't like. And they'll say dinner, and it allows you an opportunity, or sign it, eat, whatever they do, and you go, yes, we are headed to, thank you so much for reminding my old brain. And then they're like, can I remind your old brain again? It's so awesome, because then they listen, and for my kids with power and control issues, once they've said it, they're like, I'm gonna do it now.
That's what's happening.
It absolutely gets the ball rolling. For my kids with seizures, I can get a feel and a read on how long their latency is, how many times before they're responding. So I gotta give them a 5-second and shut my mouth and wait for them. I have a girl right now who's 18 years old, and she has an 8-second lag time. Go hang your backpack up, sweetie. Do you know how many times in Bozeman High, or whatever high school she's actually at Glacier High School in Kalispell, she gets redirected in those 8 seconds. Madison, go put your coat on. Madison, go over here, go hang it up. Madison. And I'm like, shut. 8 seconds. And I tell them 10, hoping they give me 7, so they're not over talking her all the time. She's like, why do my teachers keep doing this? Too many words, too many people. But we're like
the pacing of it.
The pacing and the timing, yeah. Timing's another behavior, it's actually a communication thing, and it's a behavior decelerator. The whole, do you want to put your hands in right hand first, left hand first? Which pinky am I going to see crawl out of your coat first?
Okay, now Shauna, slow that down and simplify.
Okay, so when we're talking about anything I want a kid to do right now, I give them a part of the whole. Let's say they can understand auditory processing, right? I give them a choice built into it. Which pinky's coming out first, right or left? You choose, or I'll choose for you. I say left one, my power and control kids go, no, right! Now think about what they're doing. They're putting their right hand through the coat, and the coat's no longer swinging over their head. They've chosen, I don't care. And I go, oh, good making a choice, thank you. And so then they try to get their coat on without, pleasing me too much, and their hands are stuck. I'm not putting either one out. And so they walk with their coats on. So I say, what? Nice job putting that coat on. And then the hands come out.
I want to say developmentally, power and control, we all want it.
Part of the whole.
It is part of developing a sense of self is to have some control.
Totally.
So in and of itself, it's not. I think there are, maybe levels of it that are really dysfunctional, but honoring that, it's a developmental need.
You bet it is.
Everybody wants to feel like, I have a choice, or I can do that, or, especially kids that are kind of over controlled by other people, to give them opportunities, which I think respite would be a perfect place.
I do too. Those anxious and ambivalent that she talked about, where the kid's not sure they're out here, and then they come back and they get rejected, or they go back out again, or they get rejected again. I mean, that rubber band thing she talked about, that's so important to think about. You're doing that all the time if you're not helping them, guide them into the power and control.
Right. You want them to take control of themselves, right? So
right.
The one thing I do caution, especially with a lot of kids that have a lot going on in their brains, limit the options, because I've had a teacher come tell me saying, I told her she could write about anything she wanted. I'm like, you just, can you just give her, it's way too vague, give her something, give her a few options, and then she'll be fine, but this do whatever, that can be
complicated.
I think that's the biggest change in my volunteers, like them seeing the facts of what they're saying.
Right.
Giving them choices that they both get you to where you want to be.
That's
right?
it.
Do you want to put your boots on, or do you want help putting your boots on, or do you want to do it yourself? The boots get put on either way.
It's massive, isn't it? It's
It's
massive.
like mind blowing that it's something so simple.
I know.
It's respectful of them as a human being, developing autonomy.
it also gives you an opportunity to reinforce them for something. I mean, sometimes you gotta start somewhere. I've literally said to certain kids, nice breathing. I had nothing else, consuming some oxygen right now. I gotta build somewhere here, because that's another, and you can kind of start that way. A lot of your older kids they don't want to be called out at all. They want signal responses. So I say to them, every time I scratch my right eye right in this corner, I'm watching it, what a great job you're doing. And then before they leave my session writing or whatever, I'd say, how many times did my eye itch today? Wink, wink. And my 13-year-old will say 15. And that's another way to communicate. It's called a signal response, and we've got it here coming. But it's also a communication and a reinforcement thing. Is a signal response.
Did we skip over importance of play?
Nope, we were right there.
Okay.
That's where I watched that video, where we watched the video, the RDI. I added it early because it was so fitting for what you were talking about.
Yeah, well, we have already sort of covered a lot of these things, but there's a few things and then a couple of things.
Just really quick, you said
Yeah.
tell, re-ask, and what was that?
Retell.
Retell.
Let them retell you what that choice is. Yep.
Thank
So
you.
you tell it, you re-ask it,
I
and
saw
then
this
they
great
retell.
teacher with a kid that was a little oppositional. She just said, "What's next?"
Yeah.
So it wasn't about her
That's
making
all
them
you
do
gotta
what's
do.
next. It was like, "Oh, what's next?" It's not negative. It's not yes or no. It's not you do it or you don't.
Yeah, that's
It was
perfect
like,
for
What's
ODD.
next?
Yeah.
I thought, whoa.
They know it.
And
Yep.
then reinforcing the day by always asking, I was like, do you think this was a good idea?
Right.
Do you think this, like, and just the question of.
What do you think about that?
Do you think
Yeah.
you deserve this reward? Or
Right.
what do you think is appropriate
Right.
since?
And you're at the level where you're developing that reflective ability,
Yeah.
where you're noticing.
Which is awesome.
Which
Yeah.
is awesome.
Yeah.
So.
I can't overemphasize the need for fun.
How about the new scripts from all the pediatricians? Play with your kids, right? So she has manipulative, physical, engaging, relation. Guess what the 4 ways to reinforce a child are? Manipulative play, physical play, engaging play where you go back and forth, and relationship based. When I went on all of those trainings I went on, you know what I came back with? That we need to have physically fun, engaged, structured time more.
Yeah.
In all of them. I don't care which methodology you picked, it meant no,
And
just,
that element of
Yeah.
joy that comes
Oh.
from play is like food. It's like, it's a necessary component of childhood. We're having fun doing this today.
exactly,
Otherwise, we might not do this again. Right?
totally. Well, it's self-fulfilling, reinforcing in a way, because we get to talk about this stuff that's really hard to talk to people who know about it about. You don't get a window to do this with people who share the same passions, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that just, some kids' social interaction is just hard. And to have positive, reciprocal social interaction and enjoyment with social. You saw in the video, him following the child's lead. That was so, one of the things we talked about earlier.
Yep.
The building of the sense of self and not just what somebody else wants you to do.
Yep.
Development of social competence, turn-taking, sharing, listening to other people's
Yes.
perspectives and experiences, empathy, altruism, emotional themes, and emotional intelligence all can get developed through play,
Totally.
especially when you get into the imaginative play. Some kids do not have that, and in a respite situation, that would be a very logical thing is to have those extended periods of time where you can get a play theme going and extend on it and use the language and the communication and kind of do that kind of stuff. We love to play.
Well, no, like today we're gonna be, you take them to the park, I'm gonna give a specific example for a respite provider. And let's say the kid loves Pooh Bear, right? Winnie the Pooh, I won't sing the song. But the respite provider looks at the kid and says, are you Tigger or Piglet today? Pick someone, if the kid loves to bounce, I'd say Tigger. And then who am I? Am I Christopher Robin or Pooh Bear? And you guys go to the park all day. I would do that as a respite provider when I was in high school or whatever.
Yeah.
And I would go to the park all day that day being Pooh Bear or whoever the kid picked for me. They have power and control built in. That means that little kid can bounce all day and you're thrilled because now they get the input they need, whatever.
And
And you can do
in
that with older
school,
characters.
everything is scheduled.
Right, and this isn't.
This is, in preschool, we have extended periods of what,
Play.
pre-play.
Developmental play.
Where you can actually get all this juice out of the play.
Yeah,
It develops attention and concentration,
So-
because it's motivating, it has those reward systems in the brain. They're getting lit up. And we've already talked a lot about how different disabilities affect communication. Those things affect play too, so you have to have an adaptive, but the video would really help as the parent can demonstrate how to play, what that latency is, and it would be.
I think that's a critical piece to, if I were coming to work with someone, I'd wanna see them, you know, kind of in action and first get a little.
And the last thing was, for me, is the levels of play. And you have the functional play,
Yep,
which is the chill child being in their own head and maybe playing with Play-Doh with nobody else is out here, right? And then the next play is parallel play, where there's a kid right here playing with the Play-Doh, and I'm playing with my Play-Doh, but I'm kind of
but
like.
you're not doing anything together yet, you're just
Well,
watching.
I'm kind of like,
Monitoring.
what's he doing, right?
Yeah.
And we're getting a little of that mirror neuron.
Yep,
I think that's what's going
that's
on there.
wonderful.
And then eventually what you want is that cooperative play where they can do the higher level social skills. So it's, when you have this child, you just have to figure out where they're at. And so then if it's a functional play kid, you're gonna sit right next to them, play with that Play-Doh, and not expect a lot of back and forth and verbal and everything.
I usually sneak that in by hiding stuff in the Play-Doh, like letters of their name, characters that go places. Cause
Or,
they're like,
you know, I
where did
can
that
say,
come from?
"Whoa."
And they get, yeah.
Wow, this is a snake.
Interactive.
Oh my
I'm like, I
God,
don't
a
know.
snake.
I love that, I love,
And
I
the
do
kid
it
is
in
like,
therapy with older kids.
Yeah.
They're like, what, and then they'll communicate with you, cause it's
Yeah,
wrong.
and it just moves them from functional, and some kids, they might do cooperative play 1 hour, but then they revert back to functional. So it's not like a smooth trajectory, so.
Right.
What else, did you have?
No, not for that one, I think
Okay.
we covered. And then the other thing, we kind of got on this when we started talking about latency and reaction time. I wanted to give you this understood.org. I did a presentation in El Salvador by a distance for a little school there that was having a lot of trouble with a lot of high needs people in a very impoverished area. And one of the things, this is in full Spanish too, if you have anyone you want to share that with, but this website is a very great one for really, if you want to know more about those learning disabilities, the three main ones, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, dyslexia, there's more than that, but a lot of them have to do with processing speed, apraxia, things like that, that are, I call them the teacher's killers, the respite provider's killers, because one day that skill will be there, just like you just talked about, and the next day it's gone, and you get so frustrated, you go, where did the math facts go, or where did the walking up the stairs alternating feet to go down the slide go? And it's because the motor skills are not present that day, remember back to the fuses, and where you're at with that body development and the other things.
The window of tolerance.
It's not there, yeah, the window of tolerance from Perry, whatever you're talking about, those things are not there at that present moment. So what do? You take a step back where you were the day before or 2 weeks before, and you build from there, and you act like that's their mastery level, and you move forward instead of going, where is that? Why isn't that here? It was here yesterday. Well, that makes the learner feel great, right? Anytime we do that, you've just now created one of those things that you have to amend again. But people, teachers do this. We do it all the time. We go, we're seeming to wonder why the second grader can't tell us where their math facts are. That kind of stuff. So same thing within the
Memory problems.
And then so the memory and retrieval is affected directly by apraxia, processing speed, head trauma, ADHD, because I'm so over-focused on everything, I can't give good attention to one thing, right?
It's really why it's so hard to get these kiddos tested.
Yes.
You never know.
You never get a real reading, right?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I told you my son has apraxia, and I say it's like Swiss cheese. You're
Exactly.
going along and there's a hole, so you
exactly.
just go around it. And that doesn't mean there'll be a hole tomorrow.
No,
Or
it can be smooth
there
cheese
might
the
be.
next day, it's Gouda the next day, I know. And it drives the and so I guess what I would tell a respite provider is expect that. You're gonna be
variation.
consistently inconsistent in some of these new things as you develop a relationship with this little learner, right? Or this big learner, whatever the case may be. You're gonna feel like you're making a nice trajectory, this high and to the right progress we like to see, and then it goes wink. And that's not a reflection on you, that's not, but memory retrieval, processing speed,
It
diagnoses
varies.
can
It
affect
varies,
this.
yeah.
Yeah, and just, the other thing, within that video that you're watching 15 minutes from, the parent interacting with the kids so you can be more proficient when you take them to Bogart Park, what you really want to look at there is how long do they count, when I said the 8 count for the young lady, how long till that learner answers? That's their latency. That's their average response time. We could go through a day, no matter how hard the question was, and find out what each of our average latency is
Well,
in
and
responding.
at 2:30 in the afternoon, what's the
Versus
latency versus
7 a.m. Yeah, it's a big difference.
My latency is
Yes.
worse
I
as
asked the
as the day
question
goes
and I
on.
didn't get an answer to till the next day.
Right? I was happy when I thought of something 4 hours later yesterday. I was like, woo! That was the name of that. Rummy Cube. I couldn't think of a little game in the 80s. Anyway, so 4 hours later it came. I mean, we all have our own latencies. That's what
Depending on how much is on the plate too, how many things
Yeah.
can you hold on that plate before things start falling
And-
off?
Okay, so typical memory, just so you guys know, and I think you probably know a lot of this already, but 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of memory. This is why they made phone numbers 7 items long, okay? So you're going along, that's not counting our prefixes, luckily we're all still 406, but you're going along, you hear something, your mind goes, okay, is it worthwhile to me or not? Do I ditch it? Do I code it? Do I keep it? Basically, is as simple as I can put that. So you've got a little one and they're playing with a new respite provider and your little one loves lime green. The respite provider happens to wear lime green shoes. You wouldn't think in your parent video to say, hey, by the way, my kid's
Got
favorite
any
color is lime green. If I were working with your child and I was 18 again, like I went into homes and did this with kids, I would want to know lime green because it would be one thing. I'd make darn sure in my toy bag that I brought everywhere I had lime green something. And, like little things we wouldn't think to share. But my point to all that is, then that kid goes, okay, they have a memory. Oh, remember that girl Hannah's coming again? She wore the lime green. Ah, I know who Hannah is. That's
the
your memory
detail.
retrieval stuff. And I can't, you teach that, it's detailed, it's a little factoid. They've got it. Temple Grandin has 1 million of these a day because her visual cortex goes her whole head. But the memory retrieval and processing speed all plays into this, right? So just think about what is their latency, and then what is real meaningful to them? What are they going to be likely to encode? What are they going to be likely to store, right?
And don't take offense at the fact your name is not gonna be one of those.
It's not. It's gonna be the lime green. I thought about
It's
it
not
with
even
your water
gonna
bottle.
be your face.
I looked at Maggie's water bottle. I'm like, that's a vivid color. It's gonna be
It's gonna be
something
the
where
little
something
teddy
you-
bear on your purse, the little,
Yes.
keychain teddy
Yes.
bear or something.
So I went around with a Mickey Mouse for all of the people who were looking at being like advocates for our kids and so forth. I went around with a Mickey Mouse bag of all my own toys because when I got to those parents' homes, I did not want to be bothered by a toy they were satiated on. They played with the whole time. I brought in new novel stuff. I even changed my own bag about every 3 weeks. So new stuff was in there. But I would walk in the door and the kids would be like, water toy please. And I'd have one of those little squishy water things or whatever, right? And I really think if I were putting myself in the shoes of a respite provider, I'd have a little bag of tricks I pulled around with me again. I did it when I was here in school. So that's one of the things with memory, they'll think on that for
And
them.
the other thing to kind of, I think, important to keep in mind, so you could be spending days hanging out, working, playing with my child. We run into you in the grocery store, they may not know who you are.
Because in that context,
Right.
it's different.
Yeah.
And don't take offense to that, anyone
Don't take
working with the
offense.
kids. They're
But where's
just-
your bag of toys?
right? That's what they might look for, is where's that?
Or
Or they might not know you at all in that context.
I only know you in my living room.
I didn't allocate that much for you. I liked our time together at my house where I expected you, but this throws me off a little. It piques my memory and it, makes me go, wait, what? Yeah. So it's a really, I love this area. As you can see, I help the elderly sometimes in dementia and how to get dressed in the morning. My favorite way to do that is a model like a store model that shows the layers, and they're all tagged with the numbers of clothes you put on first. You can do the exact same thing with outdoor clothes. Individuals with slow processing, difficult time getting stuff into long-term memory. Do I keep it, ditch it, store it, save it? What do I do with it, right? So that's all there. Slow processing, don't overtalk them, because that's what we tend to do. We say it again thinking they didn't hear us. They heard us. They're processing. You know the best thing to do? I'll give you time. I'm right here. Let me know if you need help, or say nothing, okay? Time, more time. Exercise patience. If you're doing the 8 count, do it. Repeat instructions and tasks only if needed. Tell, re-ask, retell, which I've already told you. When in doubt, write it out. And so this is for someone who is visual and understanding it, or who needs the icons. 1 question at a time, don't ask them 3. And then when they're completing an activity, 1 piece of the activity at a time. I'm going to tell you about something, and especially respite providers, I have a whole slide of these things, but backward chaining is probably one of the best teaching strategies that is the most forgotten about. If you're teaching a kid to make a bed at home, you have just the top comforter down a little bit, and all you ask them to do is make the bed, the last step, right? And then the next day you have it part way down and up, and this helps with all of your volunteer stuff too. Because you can have 90% of it done, and then what I love about this procedure is they always end with the correct final desired product versus forward chaining, which is the bed stripped on the floor, and none of us want to do that, right? Yeah, it's too much. Puzzles, you take 2 pieces out at a time. You know, that kind of thing. Do not forget about that when you're teaching a brand new task to some of our early learners or late learners. It helps them so much to do the very end. It's pretty remarkable. So that's one piece at a time I knew, and 1 key at a time, that sort of thing. I knew it was going to lead me to 1 step at a time, but don't forget that can be the very last step. Take a bite of that angel food cake. Certain things cooking-wise you can't really backward change. It's a timing piece there, but we can always do the last step first, which is
Cool the pudding.
and then teach them how to cook it later, right? So think on that as well. Okay, questions for you guys. I'm going to get to the functional parts of behavior here. I combined a bunch of different things, and then I'm going to let Tina. Do you have any you want to jump in on there before I do this?
I'm done with my morning stuff.
Oh, good.
Oh, initiative.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You want to do that now, or do you want to do it?
Give me a
Let's do
break.
it. No?
Okay. So this is one of our main, our model at Head Start is what are called protective factors that are the things, the skill-based things that you want to build. And the behavior scale is totally separate.
Yep.
But the behavior scale is dependent on the skill scale, so we are a strengths-based, or trying to build up the different aspects, and there's the attachment, self-regulation, and initiative. And in terms of the child's sense of being an effective person in the world, and being able to make decisions, solve problems, all this stuff is that. So, and initiative can be very affected by the frustration tolerance, the disabilities
Yep.
of
Physical limitation.
Yeah. And I think that respite providers could really be a big influence in initiative because the play, you have to initiate over and over and over again. Independence, don't do anything for a child that they can do for themselves.
Right.
I can't tell you how many Head Start kids come in and they
Yeah.
and the parent continues to pick the child up, put the kid's jacket on, put the boots on, when they've been putting their jackets and boots on all day
All
long.
day. Yep.
It's just like, wow. Or feeding the child, even like a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Choosing something is difficult as part of that.
Mhm.
So, and that's some of that is that confidence factor of having that feeling of being an effective person. I'll try something that's
Yeah.
harder. Imaginative play, multiple opportunities to interact, but creativity, invention, problem solving, experimentation. There's a bunch of cognitive skills
Totally.
involved in having initiative. persistence, starting and organizing play with others. This is a very
That's
hard one.
It's a really hard.
That's a really hard, I
I
can't
always
tell.
pick an activity that's easy.
I observed a
to do.
kid in Livingston a year ago, wild child. I thought, oh my God, ADHD. The mother was kind of off her rocker. I imagine it was all interconnected with him being this wild child. He told me during the observation, he says, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, nobody wants me here. We switched him to another classroom, and he had very low verbal, he didn't have any social interactions the whole observation. He was just bouncing from like this.
Right.
And I think it's part of that anxiety. This year, he's Mr. Social Leader. He was organizing, and he was like, it was a camping in the block area. They were making a tent, they were having a fire. A kid knocked down the tent, he goes over and he says, you need to put that back together. So that in 1 year span, with the right teacher and feeling safe and like he belonged to the classroom, belonging is a huge developmental need to be a part of. And so I was like, his attention span for academics not there yet. But the social, I thought, oh my God, that's number 4, right?
Yep, it is number 4, and he's rocking it.
So anyways, yeah, the only problem is he refusing to go to do anything on the toilet. So we had,
I'd say impactions might be part of the issue.
no, it's loose stool. He's,
Always,
I think he's
or
busy.
back and forth. When you see it loose
It's
and then.
never constipated. It's normal or it's loose. So, yeah, no, but I said maybe lactose intolerance.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah.
but also it's that overstimulation. If you're so busy playing and you're doing all this,
Yeah.
you don't want to take time to
No.
go sit on the potty. So you would be proud of me. I did a behavioral intervention.
Excellent, I love it.
He's going to have a highly motivating thing to play with while he's on the toilet.
That's exactly what I do. And he doesn't.
They were resistant, let me tell you.
He doesn't get to play with it anywhere else either.
Right, no, it's.
Keeps
that's
its stay power right above the
Good
toilet.
job, Tina.
Good job, Tina.
Doing
I
some
love
of his
it.
act.
Finally coming around.
They were resistant at Head Start because they didn't want something that nobody else could play
I
with,
know.
that he was
But it
playing
has
with.
to have novelty or you're toast.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the only time he gets it.
Kids, hold on just one sec, since we're segueing anyway.
Yeah.
Kids that do have really hard stools, then really loose stools back and forth, and the parents think they've blown out and are totally cleaned out, that's usually the top indicator for an impaction. What happens is before your body gets septic, it will poop around the impaction.
Right,
And then you need 5 to 6 weeks of pudding style consistency poop. I'm gonna say, I can't say, I guess on TV, no Miralax, but really limit Miralax. It's the first Western med thing to give. And it's because it's more natural than other things, well, kind of. It infuses more water into your bowel. Over time, if you continue to use it,
it's too
it
lax.
is absolutely horrible for the bowel over time. It damages it. So,
Well, the
good
muscles
old
get
magnesium.
Exactly.
Which they're already, there's a thing called calm, I mean, just regular
Kids
magnesium.
used to have to eat mineral oil in the old.
Oh,
back
I
in the
put
day.
mineral oil, even over Miralax, I would do mineral oil, because it's still better than that. I went to Salt Lake Children's Hospital with a young man who got a foot of his bowel removed because it had been so damaged with Miralax. His inner and outer bowel were reversed. But I'm just telling you how much impactions. I told you at one point we talk about poop. So if you've got a kid with you and you're a respite, especially after we eat, that's weird. You're a respite provider and you're out and you've noticed it's always, you've got to tell the parents what the consistency, substance of it is. And we need, every kid needs to poop every day every day. So the kids that wait 4 days to poop, they absolutely have something going on, either diet-wise or impaction-wise. It's not okay. Every other's kind of okay if that every other's a big movement. But I can't tell you the number of times I've heard they're clogging the toilet, they're doing this, they're doing that. I've had to say to doctors, I will put $100 on this table right now. He is absolutely impacted. Sure enough, they take it and they're like, it's to their neck. They take the stomach x-rays, the only way to tell if there's actually truly an impaction. It's a great baseline to start from, because then you know it's there or you know it's not there, and you move from there, no pun
And
intended.
hydration.
Hydration's massive, but a lot of our kids, and if they're taking any meds, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but they need to be even more hydrated if they're on meds. So this is this, conundrum of all of it. And anxiety makes you hold, some of my sensory needy kids will hold just to get that pressure like a vest. Did you know that? That's how it starts. So then they're built up in there, so it's like they're tight holds that they would normally get. I am telling you, that's why some of the kids are
And to
affected.
do a bound minute, you have to kind of relax.
Yeah,
And if you've had a bad experience,
or you don't feel safe, or you need a weighted vest
it
on
can
you
be
while
very
you poop.
painful, and if you don't
I've done
want
a
to
lot of
avoid the
things
pain.
with poop, so,
Anyways.
good for respite providers to know that.
Talk for him?
Yep,
Okay.
moving on.
There is a chart though, I mean, just
Yeah,
on the subject, you probably know about that.
Yep.
And it's really good for reference, because really what it looks like is important too,
yeah,
you need to know what it means and what it looks like.
go, yeah.
And report in.
Yep,
Making decisions like you've been talking
Yes.
all more,
For
the
initiative.
old model of working with kids was to completely kind of.
structure everything.
Yeah, structure everything for them. Confidence versus self-doubt,
Yes.
feeling effective and like you're powerful.
I do the I did it dance with my littles. I did it, I did it, I did it, did it, did it. And then we spin around when they have accomplished
Yep.
something. That teaches that
Oh, that's
intrinsic
what they're gonna
versus
do when you go
extrinsic.
to the toilet too, there's gonna be a dance.
Yep, absolutely. And no automatic flushers, cover them up. I
Oh,
don't
you know
how
what we
many
also
trips.
do? We put a target in the toilet.
Yeah, I've done that.
Oh, a
Lots.
sticker in the toilet.
Cheerios, little boys love
Cheerios.
peeing on Cheerios.
Oh, we thought everybody would like the little sticker in
Oh.
it. It's attached in the toilet bowl.
It's perfect. I'm so glad they did all that, that's awesome.
Oh, it's just for respite providers, it's not uncommon for parents to ask, okay, what do they eat, what do they drink, what do
Nope.
okay, so
And how
just.
much?
Be ready for all that, because
Yeah,
that's what we
be
need to do to communicate. Yep,
And it does affect bowel
Well, you
movement.
gotta have the poop.
affects everything.
If there's no.
Oh, I went out and I gave him a huge milkshake, sugar and dairy.
And now they're blowing.
Here, you can have them back.
Right.
Okay, let's let you figure out what happens next.
You absolutely have to honor and figure that
Yes.
the parents know best, and they're not just depriving their child or being mean. There's a really good reason for whatever those
The
limits
diet
are.
restrictions.
to have.
Do not give my child goldfish.
Is there gonna be sort of like a check, it'd be great if there was like a check-in,
That's-
check-out sheet?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
I've got them, I'm happy to share them and make them.
I mean, you can see so many.
Hours slept, all of it, yeah.
And you can see the, routines and sort of, does this only happen when one provider is providing care?
Yep.
Does it happen when all the providers are providing care?
Anecdotal notes are terrible, and they don't hold up in court worth of. So like I'm saying, the just daily note, great day today, tells us nothing. What they eat, you know what I mean, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. What was the
And a
intake
parent
of
may
foods?
ask you to do that because they're collecting data
Yep,
to bring to the psychiatrist, for instance. If you
absolutely.
don't have data over a period of time, we can't tell if that mood stabilizer is working.
Right.
So and if there's a piece of time here, the parents aren't keeping it, they may ask you to keep it.
Well, and it's also communication,
For the
if your
parents.
child is really unhappy when you're gone and you notice they just shut down, they're not eating, they're not drinking, whatever. Or maybe they're doing great when you're gone, but that's a way that the
You guys know.
the child is communicating through those body needs.
Yep, that's perfect.
And the parent could guide what they want feedback on it.
Totally. I literally have like the daily tracking forms already, so you guys could amend them to whatever you want with and I'm happy to share them with you.
One thing that is a bad thing that happens often, I think, with special needs kids is something called learned helplessness.
Always.
And that's
Prompt
why
dependency
all
in
the
my
stuff
world.
we're talking about is really to counteract the possibility that the child will feel very helpless and powerless and unable to make any change in their life or to have any kind of power and control.
It's the first step to depression too. So the way you combat it is small achievable goals and you get kids out of it quick, but it is literally the stepping stone to depression. Why should I even, it's when you
Why
think.
should I try?
Yeah, it's when you think that, that your own behavior has no, or your own
Right.
whatever has no effect on what's gonna happen to you or not. And that is literally the first step.
It's all being done
It's all
to
being
you.
done to me instead of me doing it in this environment. And it's very common, you can induce it in groups of people very easily by asking them to do something that's too hard. If you had a kid, I often talk about it with like a physical disability and I'm asking, she can't I have a little kid right now with a genetic condition, and she's 1 in 24 in the whole world, the only Caucasian living with it, and she has no other fingers except these. She went to an old school, elementary school, and they made her handwrite everything. So she's had 45 surgeries here to repair this. She's now 20-some years old, and this is still all she's got for life. Her elbows are fused. She will never be able to wipe. So wiping was on her IEP. Finger writing was on her. So, but if you ask that kid to please write something and hopefully not get fatigued, she's going to be out. She's not going to want anything to do with you, whoever was around in the environment. You're all conditioned punishers to her now, and she wants nothing to do with you because physically you've asked her to do something that's too hard for her to do.
And sometimes you can have more control and power by being helpless and infant.
Well, and then you can take it there, right? I was taking it, right, we weren't recognizing it, but you can kind of make a kid prompt dependent, make them always depend on the other, and then they have no sense of autonomy or
This is how I
independence.
stay connected to you, by being a baby.
Right, so I'm gonna keep doing that.
So does that present differently than, say, a kid who we were talking about earlier, like will milk that situation for all, you know,
Right,
like
Power.
I need help with everything.
right. It does present differently. You try to go to, actually that leads right into this stuff. You try to go back to the functional variable of why it's caught, you know, what's happening. Is it power and control based? Is it truly because we've coddled them too much? Do we have helicopter mom going on that hasn't let them do anything and go, don't do that, you know, well, what's happening that's led to this behavior for this child? And that's where a lot of that info comes from, because then the I'm gonna say the RX, the script that you do, is different depending on the function of the behavior. And I have kids that all 5 of these are a function. So you pick the one that's the most maladaptive for that individual in their life, in society and so forth, and you start with it first, right? ABA, I'm going through the textbook definitions of it with some of my class and students right now, and it's applying a behavioral technique that's pro-social, pro-autonomy and independence building to a socially significant problem. We've identified this kid not being able to ride the horse because his self-stimulatory autistic type behaviors are so grand that it scares the horses, let's say, in the barn, something like that. That's a socially significant problem for him because he can't get on a horse until he calms that down, that system down, right? Goes back to all the stuff we talked about. But is he doing that because he wants power and control over that and he wants to leave the barn? Is he doing it because it's a medical variable and it's totally out of his control? Is he doing it for the sensory feedback he receives from rocking and moving, which would be a big guess of mine? Is he doing it from negative attention? Because you have one learner here that's going, Jacob, sit still on that horse now, Jacob, which could be attention and power and control, right? Or is he doing it because he just wants out and he is too afraid of that horse and he wants to get out? Do you see? That's a big, long example, but that's all of those together, and you got to kind of tease out which variable is causing the behavior to happen. And it might, like I said, it might be all 5, but which one's at 80%, or which one's even at 60, or which one's the most, the one that stops his most independent life functioning? What is that one? And then you start with it first. So my kids that are headbanging 200 times a day, we start there. You know, we don't look at all the other pieces that are happening. We start with the one, then we find out there's a mass in the right side of the temporal lobe somewhere, and I say, oh, well that makes sense, or migraine headaches, or you know, there's some other medical things going on, but we still start with that by trying to make sure it's not power control based. 90% of that's attention maintained. If it's not a medical variable, the head banging. It might be escape because the situation's too tough to get out of. I have fully gone around your question.
Emotional overload.
Emotional overload. Emotion's the other one that's on here that is really hard. The other one that I put on here often, if I add one, is either social attention, but that kind of can fall under attention,
Right.
or emotional dysregulation.
Right.
And emotional is the 6th bubble that with Tina that I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put emotion or trauma.
Right.
Because those
One other
things
one
come
there.
in and they're not as cut and dry as these, both the emotional and the trauma-based stuff. And so, stuff, it's wrong.
Yeah,
word.
why do you need to escape, you know, what's the
Yeah, what
real-
are you escaping from? So the big questions are, why are they doing the behavior, and then what's the root of that, right? And just so everyone knows, the behaviorists were the crazy people in the 1900s when this all started because they wanted to measure outward observable behavior. The science of psychology before that was Rorschach, what do you see in this picture? Unconscious states. And I'm like, why were they crazy?
Humors.
Yeah, exactly. And we were like, oh, I'm just going over this history again right now, and it's always shocking to me that the things that you could actually see that wanted to be measured were the quackadoodles versus and now we know all cognitive behavior, EMDR, CBT, DBT, all of those, they come together. Those worlds are beautiful together, but you have to try to tease this stuff out. And so that's what the Olympic rings are for. If you guys would add another one for that trauma piece and the emotional.
Because you can have
It's a
emotional overwhelm.
huge piece, and Tina added some to a slide I'm gonna show you, I didn't add the circle on this.
Oh,
I thought you did on the PowerPoint, I'm pretty sure you added emotional, that was
okay.
really good, because you added it, yeah. We were doing this on Google Drive all the time, back and forth, she's like, how do I put presenter notes in? What do I do? I'm like, don't worry about it.
I'm not
She's
doing
like, I'm
it!
using a sheet. I said, okay, fine. I do this all the time at the college, so it's, for me, it's not as foreign, but it would be if I hadn't done it. If I hadn't gone back to teaching, I would have been using a sheet too. So that's kind of what those functional behaviors are, and again, add that emotional piece, because that is huge. I never ask my kids why if I'm a respite provider. I don't say, why did you kick the slide when we were going up and down it? I say, where were we, what, when, how. I have a really good processing sheet. if
This
you
is
guys
actually a really good way to organize what just happened.
Yep.
You climb that swing, and then this happened, and
Then this happened.
you're sort of
then
making
this,
sense of it.
And they'll tell you.
Sequential.
Yep. I use it for speech too, because I figure you always have the hand there. I know all the signs to what you want to say. A lot of your kids that can't copy signs, I'll do this kind of thing. So they'll say to you, ice cream now. I want ice cream now. You don't have to have the please with it, but it'll tell them one finger per word, and they need to put it in a little bigger sentence if they're
It's a
12
visual.
years old. It's a visual for them, and everyone's like, what are you doing? I'm like, put a finger up per word. They're like, what? And it's confusing, but it's a really good way to help with that communication, and it works beautifully because we always have them with us. So that's the other thing with communication stuff. You don't always, I rely a lot on stuff that I've got with me, right? So these are my functional, I have 17 of these, justice and revenge. I have all kinds on my functional behavior assessment that I do, but these kind of encompass absolutely, what we're talking about. Tina's addition, the emotional piece, is more the why, and sometimes you don't get to that right away, right? But it's absolutely critical. So why did they escape? If I see another kid in the hallway in 2nd grade, kicking the hall because they've been asked to leave the room because their behavior is too bad, and then the teacher has to reteach that behavior. Or if you're on a respite trip with someone and you say, go sit out over there, I'm gonna keep playing. I mean, that's like, why would you do that, and when would you do that? Figure out what's going on for the kid right then. Often they're escaping a tough situation. Parents will say to me, what do I do? This is perfect for a respite provider. The child starts melting down in aisle 12 of Walmart. I will literally say,
Don't take them to Walmart.
well, that's the first thing. Go somewhere quieter and less light assaultive. But we have 2 things on the list. You don't need to get either one. You can do dry runs. You don't even need to be in that store or not. You're just going to practice the sensory assault and back out again and get a lollipop in your pocket. Not, can I buy? I seriously could end up business cards in Walmart. But anyway, so what I think is extremely important in that moment is remember that your timeout spot or your calm down spot, because we can't really make an alcove in Walmart or Target or wherever we are, is your car. And so you prep and prime the kid. If I'm a respite provider with my vehicle, I say, if anything gets too hard in here, we'll run right back
Take a
out,
break.
regain our
Reason that word a
composure.
lot. Take
We
a
have
break.
the weighted
It's
blanket.
not punitive at all. Everybody needs to
Yep.
take a break.
Yep, take a break, chillax. The older kids love the chillaxing spot. The chillaxing spot's in the car. Yes, you may sit up front because we're not driving anywhere. Get your body calm. We have a weighted blanket, a rubber band. We got all kinds of tools in the car, right? And then the key here is if it's truly escape motivated, they may not want to go back in. Your toughest time might be getting them back in because they don't want to be assaulted again. So there's something in the car that they love with you, a transitional item, if you will, that they brought from the homes of the parents that they love more than anyone else. And you say, should we take Bunny in for a little ride, see how he does in the cart? Should we take such and such in? So you're mending that. You're giving them a reason to not really fully escape it. We're only going to get 2 items today. I don't really need this other stuff. We have plenty at home. Apples and this, and something right together. Boom, boom, out you go.
And depending on the level, like your child is old enough to,
So, yeah.
when you leave Walmart, you can say, what happened?
Right,
You know,
right.
You
If
know.
they're down far enough.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, if they're still here,
Yeah, but
Just get
you
to the
need to
car.
get them from here to here,
Yeah.
and you can say, well, I noticed there were really bright lights, did that bother you? If they can talk, I mean, you've got
Exactly.
that variation, but
I didn't like those lights in there, I've said before.
Yeah.
Those really bugged
Oh.
my eyes. I
that
feel like I
kid
need to
was
take a Tylenol.
screaming. Ooh,
Yeah,
that
was
hurt
loud.
me. Yeah, just to start developing that awareness of these things impacting them. There's a bridge there
yep.
to get to the point where you can just say, what happened?
If we're here with Sarah's little guy Asher, we get him safe, we get him to the car, we start playing some classical Pandora. I have, with him specifically, I've had classical Pandora going off in my butt pocket on my phone the whole time we're walking through somewhere, because it just provides a little bit of a drown out of noise
Yeah.
that he can,
And
tolerate.
classical music is structured, and
Oh,
it has a lot of
it's
sequence
rhythmic,
in it.
don't
Yeah,
do
it's
dissonance.
Yep.
Don't do Gretchen Wilson's latest whatever. I mean, no country, no rock, nothing like
trash can
just
music.
I love Piano Guys are my absolute favorite on Pandora, and it's just modern
One
songs
instrument.
with piano, and it's not a harpsichord, it's not, there are
One
pitches.
instrument.
Yeah.
One thing, these circles, I'm reminding myself, and it might help other people as well. You can't assume you always know the answer. Like Avery has some behaviors, and I always think it's attention. I know
Right.
what you're doing, and then sometimes it's medical or something.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I even like a kid I've known for 16 years. I can't say this is what this always
Nope.
means. You
And
sort
that's-
of have to think about
Yeah.
it every time.
And if you ignore and it's attention maintained, it should change the behavior.
Right.
They're gonna have a reaction.
Right.
If it didn't, you go,
It's
whoa, wait a
medical.
minute,
It's
something
not-
is going on,
Yeah.
exactly, medically speaking.
And
And that's what you do, unfortunately.
And whenever you have a situation where you're testing kind of either uncharted waters or ones that you know are gonna be choppy, make sure you're not in a time crunch, make sure there's not
Right.
someplace you have to
Rush.
pee, make sure
Always.
you're not rushing, make sure you're not on a schedule, because then that is a recipe
There's enough
for
of that you
disaster.
have to do.
Yeah.
Hopefully in respite, there can be,
There can be
less
flexibility,
rushing,
but even
pushing,
I had
rushing.
to take Evie back to the dentist after that
Yep.
terrible experience. They
That was the other
scheduled
one.
2 hours for us just for what would
Transition.
actually take 10 minutes.
Right.
To make sure she's comfortable getting out of the car and walking into the office so we ended up being in and out of there in 20 minutes, but I had to
They
make
had
sure
the
there
backup
was
plan.
ample time to get her through that.
I have parents that call ahead and order the food they're gonna go get.
Mhm.
At the restaurant they're gonna go get, because they're like, we have a window of 20 minutes max. So they get there, the food's ready for them, they've set it down, they're anticipating getting through it without having to take it to go. And that's another little
Yeah.
trick.
It's
You
like
can
a
get, you
recipe
can call
for
target.
disaster to go sit somewhere in
Yeah.
a restaurant.
Absolutely.
Why are you doing that?
I know,
Why are you doing that?
exactly. So 20 minutes is a good time to really have that, and then they backward chained it from there. So if 20 minutes is what they could do, then they've added on 25, 30. We're in the restaurant for 35 minutes. I've collectively done that with my families where they're building time into those spaces. The respite provider will want to know that too. Where you start, 15 minutes in and out. Call Target
Build
ahead,
in
and these are the
tolerance.
4 items we need,
Yeah.
and you can drive up and pick them up. I mean, that's the way to
You
build
can't
that,
just
right?
avoid distress, you've got to
Yeah,
build
you
distress
gotta build it.
tolerance.
That's the one thing we didn't say is with that sensory processing piece, there's no magic sensory pill. You have to work the kid through it with a hat on one time, maybe a one-eared hat the next time, up here the next time. You're fading that accommodation, if you will, away, but they have to get used to some. They don't have to be totally assaulted,
Progressively.
but they have to get used to, it's called systematic desensitization.
And
So
You're systematically.
are you moving the window
Yes.
when you're doing
We're,
that?
yeah, great,
You're
great
causing a
connection.
little bit of distress, but
Right.
not overwhelming distress.
But
You're
enough
moving it, you're
that
widening
You've got
it.
that transition
Right.
where,
That's
you know,
exactly
they were
what you're
here, but
Right.
now they're here,
Yep,
with the intention
Yep.
of potentially we'll get here.
yep,
And so
Exactly.
with, like we talked about Evie and her hood situation, she
Bless you.
still wants to wear her hoodie every single day. Now, does she wear the hood? Not anymore, but it makes her feel comfortable knowing that it's still there as
Right.
an
If
option.
you were to cut that off, she would probably go back to full-on hood all the time,
Yeah.
and we would do more damage than
Well,
good.
that's her escape pouch. too.
Yeah, it is. It
And
is.
also power and control.
Totally.
She has say over
Totally.
it.
And when it's really loud, she knows what to do. I'd love to get her in the earbud mode. Many of my kids walk around Bozeman High with earbuds in, and they don't even have it hooked up to anything. This is dangling under their shirt. The teachers don't touch them because anyone can have devices there, but they have like one earbud in if it's really loud, both right now, well, there's 2,400 kids in that place, or, you know, one out, one in, that kind of thing, and it looks like every other kid in that. And just so people know, too, parents more, they do make custom earplugs that will still let enough sound in that you're not blocking too much for about $95, and they literally mold your ear, so a lot of times the kids will prefer those to others. You still have to get them through it. There's something called sensory integration training or auditory integration training, where they listen to different pitches and sounds on tapes, and it makes them be less sensitive to sounds coming in if they're very auditory sensitive, where they can't be in the barn, let's say, or something like that, because it's too much assault. Then there's a program they can go through with an OT, pediatric OT.
Echo tends to be huge
Oh, yeah.
with kiddos. This is funny, actually. Irving, Mr. Morris noticed that when it comes to shooting hoops, Evie does a lot better when she does it outside than inside because the gym echoes.
Yeah. Oh, it makes total sense to me.
Oh yeah, the echo drives me nuts.
Yeah, I can think about it right now.
Gyms.
Yep, and squeaky shoes and stinky
And
armpits.
you just have to amplify your experience by this much
Yeah.
of what that autistic kid,
Yeah.
because they,
Yep. Sarah, when you asked me when I started, so I was 16 when I first started working at the group homes too, I didn't tell you that in Sydney. And this boy with autism who was about my age, we had a children's intensive group home there, and you could start working at 16, was doing this. Good old Eastern Montana, we had the water running full bore the whole time when he was to brush his teeth. No water conservation going on at all. So it's psst, he's got this, I've got this, he's going like this, and I said, shut the water off! And they're like, what is this little 16-year-old yelling at us? I'm like, shut it off. And I shut it off, and they're like, no, we have to have it on, we're brushing our teeth. I'm like, no, we don't, we have Dixie cups in the kitchen, grab one now. As soon as we shut that water off, he stopped banging his head. And I think about that, and I go, wow, how, it's just a weird thing to how logical, but at the same time, we always, run the water while we wash our face, brush our teeth, all these things. And I'm like, shut it off! And he stopped, and they were all like, 35-year-old coworkers are going, what was that? And I'm like, let's just try dipping in the cup and brushing that way. And then he can spit, because spitting's the last step and it's what they're doing anyway. They're spitting to get that out of their mouth. I don't blame them. And then rinse and spit. And then rinse, have a little bit of the toothbrush in and spit. I'll do 10 on each side, spit, that kind of stuff. So, and a respite provider could be guiding someone through any of that. So that's why it's important to realize a self-flushing bathroom toilet, not the best. We've gone to so many runs. And I cover them with I take sticky notes in my car and cover them up. Here you don't have them, but I was like, oh good, no self-flushing. So that's, I always look.
You can cover up the little.
The eye,
A lot
they
of
won't,
the
then you
kiddos
can
end
be in
up
charge
using
of
the
it.
teachers' bathrooms and, because Yeah.
Then you can pull the sticky
Our
note
first
off and you're not
experience is
touching the
second
stuff and it'll flush when you leave,
Oh,
but they're in control when they pull it off, like my little guy making
Oh,
pudding.
that's so cool.
So you can control when he pushes it, so I have sticky
Plus they
notes in the
flush
car.
about 3 times while
Yeah, I
you're-
know, it's ridiculous, it's awful.
Yeah, weird.
So this is all the manifestation of behaviors. These, you are experienced enough that we know, we kind of see the category and then they can manifest, there's where you added emotional, Tina. Behavior that expresses emotion combined with impulse control problems. And it's she's very correct in adding that. And it's very powerful. I tried to write this with in mind the most difficult behavior, nonverbal, non-communicative, or what you felt like was. So if we had a person that was going to be a respite provider for that particular individual, I think if I can be as honest as I can, many of those individuals aren't in Eagle Mount programs right now. And so if we could get them here with the proper support, it would be really great for them. I'm super happy Asher's swimming. And he's by no means, I've got 10 other kids who could come here right now if we had people trained to work with them, right? So that's how I kind of tried to write this, thinking about not too extreme, but you had said to me, I want you to think about, a tougher case and how we properly train someone to be ready for that particular piece. So this is redundant. I think we know what some of these behaviors are. Here's the sensory. Remember the rocking, head banging, we just kind of got on that too, because I will tell you the biggest miss in school districts is sensory processing, by far and away. And they're not going, every 30 minutes this kid needs access to deep input on the 30-minute mark. That's what I tell every teacher every time I present. I don't know if they really need it every 30 minutes, but I'm gonna tell them that hoping they get it twice in the day or whatever, because that proactive approach is really important with sensory. This might be a little loud, go ahead and prepare your ears. Oh, another trick, if you're going anywhere big with an individual that experiences any of these difficulties we're talking about today, let them get in the space before it's full.
And
So-
noise canceling earphones.
Lunchroom, but see, a lot of them don't want to wear them later.
I'm just saying some do.
Yeah, I haven't had any middle schoolers want to even touch those because I
That's
love
older.
No, I know. Early on, I would have a wall of noise canceling headphones if I ran a gym in a school. And I would say, anyone may go up and grab those if it ever gets too loud in here. So it's not, the other thing I see a lot are accommodations for one with special needs. That's actually a violation of FERPA. A cat can't have a behavior plan on her desk and none of the rest of you have it, or we're violating her HIPAA, FERPA rights because we're calling out that she has exceptionalities to Sarah and everyone else. Very interesting, right? So that's a lawsuit I've been helping on. Oh, sorry, I had to take a breath on that one. So if you have a respite provider and you're working with them, make sure the family communicates how you want any disabilities talked about or shown or exactly. Because that is a really important piece in a small community.
Confidentiality, how much.
Put that in your
And it's
notes
funny
for
'cause-
provider respite. Like,
Yeah.
To be real clear with the parents about what they want, talk about what they don't want, and what language they want.
Right, you don't want to go into Target in front of them and say, oh, they have hypotonia and Down syndrome, and then the kid comes home and goes, well, what's
Yeah.
hypotonia? whatever, right? And yours is older too, but
But still,
still,
maybe he doesn't.
and maybe they're little kids.
What if I say I want it called T21 or
Right,
C21?
exactly.
Well,
Some of my kids, they've never said the A word to the kid.
Well,
They-
some
because
of them,
they-
their parents have T-shirts on saying, this child is autistic.
Right.
Sarah, when they flew to mail, all three of them
Is that
said,
where I saw it?
I love autism, and all three of them, mom, dad, and little boy, had them on that day, because she said, I knew we'd get a million,
Sure.
thousand, trillion questions, so
Right.
we
Like
just
when
wrote
I
it
don't feel like-
right here, and they're like, we had the best flight ever. Sarah would share that if she-
We wear our Buddy Walk T-shirts.
Yeah,
It's like, here we
exactly,
go.
here we
This is
are.
us.
This is us.
But there's gonna be a lot of variation on that.
Everyone deals with that. That is another important, I'm glad, yeah, anyway. So those are my tangents on those pieces and really looking at what the function is. It makes a big difference. I've had kids come back and say, oh, what is this, Mom? What's trauma-based? And the mom's like, what did you say in front of it, you know? So it's, because I've worked on training babysitters and all kinds of people, so.
And it's funny because I've had parents ask, well, why doesn't the school tell them that this is what's going on? I was like, because they're not allowed to.
Yeah, I mean, she can't have a behavior plan on her desk. You should see the faces
It's
when
like
I say
telling
that.
another parent, like,
Yeah,
you're
Yeah.
that kid bit my kid, what's
Yep.
wrong with them?
Yep.
You can't say, well, he's got autism.
No, you can't, and you can't put a behavior chart on his desk unless there's one on every kid's desk.
That's new since I was
Well,
in school.
And it's how it should be. I mean, if you want the chart on the kids, I can guarantee you, if you're a cat, you don't want the chart when no one else has
That's
it,
embarrassing.
put it inside the desk. I mean, this is a
And
no-brainer to me.
My kiddo's notorious right now, like, she doesn't wanna stick out like a
Oh,
sore
she
thumb.
is absolutely almost not phobic about it, but she is,
Embarrassing.
yeah, I don't wanna, well, and she's
Middle
doing
school.
well, so.
Yes.
Really great references for sensory processing disorder. Love all these. I'm not gonna, there's a symptoms checklist, the notes, the basic understanding. Really great to share with someone if you wanna get there that way. All right, there's your initiative. I just didn't go to the slide, sorry.
Oh, I
So,
didn't.
we've talked about all of these, except probably the fourth one, 4 to 6 weeks to make a permanent change in the behavior. Do not bring it on for a week and think you're gonna tackle it. It's 4 to 6 weeks to stick with it. If you decide to ignore a certain behavior that's going on and give them validation, you should see the change. You'll probably see some sort of shift right away. It may not be the best
And
shift,
it's gonna vary.
but it will vary, and I always say give it at least 4 to 6 weeks to make it stick. Does that make sense to you guys? I think that's helpful for us.
Well, and while we're talking about your own self-care, sometimes it can be pretty painful.
Yeah.
Seeing, that, like Sarah talking about her son and how much struggle he is and how uncomfortable he is and your own empathic response and feeling like you can't make it better. It's, you know, you will feel some parallel response as a parent feels because you care about the child if they're having a really hard time.
Right.
And you have to, this is like a skill I had to learn a long time ago, is you have to be able to do what you can do in the time that you have and then walk away and then come back to it. Parents don't get to walk away.
Right.
Doesn't that work?
But the respite provider, I mean,
Yeah.
they do have to, right?
Yeah, and don't expect too much, or you're doing a piece of it. You're doing a piece that is to be a kind and safe and fun adult to be a part of their life and to experience some of this competence. And also the role of separating from a parent,
Right.
a respite provider, or even Eagle Mount. You're providing that opportunity for the child to get away from a relationship by necessities. Those children are much more dependent on their parents
Right.
than other kids are, and so that has its own unique problems in the family. But respite, I'm going skiing, you know, I'm gonna separate and go away, and I did it, I survived. So there's a real role for somebody to take the child away from the pressure cooker of the family.
And get some time. Well, and who do you want them to discuss concerns with? Me first? Like, I think that should almost be in the handout manual too. Like, who do you want that respite provider to discuss what's going on with the kid with? Parent first, obviously, but see here we wrote peer or mentor. We have to have a strong line for respite providers on who they can talk about. I think about Whitefish schools, tiny little schools. They don't even, when teachers come into staff on kids with me, they don't even say what grade they're in.
Why would they need to go beyond the parent?
Well, they wouldn't, but see, discuss concerns with a peer or mentor. Who do we want that to be for the respite provider? That's what I'm saying. Let's say they have a class with me at the college.
Yeah.
I need to know that it's okay for them to ask questions. They're not saying who it is, right?
Right.
But I have,
They
I
have
don't
to
know how many
maintain
students
the
that ask me, right?
confidentiality.
So I'm saying parents should drive that ship and telling them, I want you to come to me first, almost a list of, that would have been helpful when I was a respite provider, like, come to the mom first, then talk to your case manager, you know. Yeah, or your teacher, yeah, right. But I was just thinking about that. We wrote that in there, but we didn't kind of
You
do it.
wrote that in there.
I wrote that. Ask for help when overwhelmed, and again, who do you ask for help for? You know, or from,
Yeah.
right? That's, I was looking at both of those going, ooh, you need to delineate who that is. Yes, I wrote that.
Yeah, I've had a lot of, some of the agencies in town have these mentors that are basically this, but it's covered by Medicaid for emotional disturbance.
Right,
I've had them come to therapy,
me too.
I've had them,
It's great.
I've trained them.
From YDI, yeah.
Because sometimes, yeah,
They're not getting the training in the agency.
Yeah, the
Always.
parents don't always have an ability to teach or to have the education to explain it as well. And so that we're all on the same page and working together.
With individual. Yep.
And this is, it's challenging and very rewarding. So it does, and you know that working with the kiddos in the school all the time.
Oh, yeah.
It's, you have good days and bad days, and sometimes you feel completely defeated, and other
Right.
days you could jump for joy because that kiddo blew through the plateau, so.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a definite pendulum swing. That would be another one to share with them on the self-regulatory. Some days are gonna be, yeah, and some days are gonna be, oh, I need a bath or a glass of wine. Yeah, it's whatever you may use. This one was yours, so. could be that.
Yeah, probably the most effective tool you have is your ability of your own self-awareness and your composure and your ability to, when you see somebody else going up, to bring it down, like we were talking about this morning.
No,
And
that's
your own
teachable.
window of tolerance, kind of knowing where you're at, and, you know, if you're having a really bad day and you need to cancel a respite because of that, it might be a good idea because you might go and try to do that respite. And
It's not gonna go up.
no, because it's not, many of these children need it to be the same.
You can't have an off day. You check your stuff at the
Yeah.
door with that. Window of tolerance is the, yeah.
Yeah, so,
See, I knew we'd be talking about some of this already, right?
yeah. Yeah, well, we've been doing this all day, those
Yeah.
other two.
Yep.
Okay,
All right,
is this the morning? This is what we're
That's-
supposed to cover in the morning?
yeah,
Okay, so should we take a quick break? and-
sure. Walk around a little.
And we'll do skills. Yeah, walk around, drink water, you haven't been drinking water.
I have a little, just makes noise, I suck on it and it goes.
Oh.
This is the only one like this. I have all these fancy hydro flasks, but